pandemic remain jobless as of last month. Based on PSA's latest labor force survey, 75% of the over 9 million laid-off workers found jobs, but 1.2 million are still unemployed as of February. Another 1 million, meanwhile, are no longer in the workforce. The total unemployment rate rose to 8.8% last month. This translates to 4.2 million unemployed Filipinos in February, a 200,000 increase from the 4 million jobless Filipinos recorded in January. Now, markets ended in the red today, retreating on that unemployment print for February and amid lingering concerns on those lockdown extensions. You can see on my terminal here, we fell 0.9% to 6545.55. We were one of the biggest decliners in Asia. Now, of course, a lot of these issues, not just in terms of the unemployment print being higher than last month, but also on the big question, will there be an extension of ECQ in NCR Plus? Now, this from the Department of Health, they issued a statement. They did mention that an extension for one more week was recommended by their department, but said nothing is final and the IATF works in a whole of government approach. There will be an assessment of the progress before this current ECQ. And so, of course, all of this was on the back of already bad news when Moody's had already said that their credit rating faces risks from the virus spikes. Now, you can see on my terminal here another day of net foreign selling today. We lost 483.3 million pesos from our foreign investors. So just a quick peek at the movers this trading day. You've got Manila Electric or Meralco up by 2.7%. So still some bright spots here, although very mixed bag. You've got utilities, you've got consumption stocks like URC, you've got gambling stocks like Bloomberry, together with LTG and Jollibee Foods. But on the downside, you've got one of our biggest banks, Metro Bank, the worst performer today, down by 3.3%. And unfortunately, I still have some more losses to report, albeit this is, of course, related to 2020, a year that people would like to write off already. This was, however, largely anticipated. Cebu Pacific's 2020 net losses are at 22.2 billion pesos. That's on the back of their revenues last year, 73% lower than in 2019. They flew 5 million passengers. That's around 78% lower than the previous year, with the flights falling to just around 41,800 flights. Now, they mentioned that as of December, they had around 20% of the pre-pandemic levels in terms of flights, and they had also cut their operating expenses. Cebu Pacific closed at 45 pesos today. Now, Malacanang was quick to qualify President Duterte's earlier statements that the private entities could import vaccines, quote, at will. But what does this all mean, and how important is the private sector's role in terms of herd immunity? Here to chat with us, we have the chairman of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the ECOP president, Sergio Ortiz Luis. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the broadcast.
And I'm always glad to be with your program.
Sir, good afternoon, I mean. All right, sir, there was some excitement, if I can say that, this morning with President Duterte saying that private companies can now buy vaccines on their own. This was then clarified by Galvez, saying that that's not exactly what he said. He just meant that we would need to fast track the procurement with the private sector. There will still be a tripartite agreement with the government, of course, if they want to do this. So how much of a positive development will this be in terms of our vaccine procurement if this tripartite agreement still needs to be done with the government?
Well, the participation of the private sector through the tripartite has been very quite well already with the group of Mr. P.A. Joey Concepcion. What we were asking PCCITs and some other groups is really to allow us to import not under the tripartite, because the ones who are asking us wants to go really directly. They will follow all the. They will only buy from those suppliers of the government, and they will follow all the whatever process that needs to be followed. So the development actually is okay. Anyway, there's quite a lot of participation. It's a pity that a lot of other people who want to participate probably wouldn't be interested anymore.
I see. Sir, however, they did mention that the process will nevertheless be fast-tracked. Businesses no longer have to pull orders together. Is this still going to have at least a sizable impact when it comes to the private sector's procurement?
We'll probably have to wait what they mean by fast track. And if it's clarified that it's really something that will be easier for some of those who would like to buy, maybe some would. But at the moment, with that clarification that there's practically no change except that it will be fast track, I don't think that is what we wanted.
Okay, sir, is there still a possibility for the private sector to be able to do it directly without the tripartite agreement? And are you going to be actively pushing for this?
Well, we clarified already. We'll have to, it is to be under the tripartite, so it's pointless to speculate about it.
Okay, so we keep it as is right now. Sir, another question is how much doses was your group initially going to purchase? And are these targets now changed with this latest development?
There is no particular amount. We're just saying that the easier it is, the more companies would like to be able to purchase their own. The reason for the offer is that the workers in the companies are basically at the tail end of the priorities, and many of them would like to be able to be ahead because they call themselves economic frontliners. Also, the other reason is because of the so many talks about which brand of vaccine is good and which one is harmful. They employees seems to have a choice of what they want, no? And so that means that the importation of the private sector should really be not hampered. Uh, but there is no problem that the government supervises it or looks at it or comes out with certain resolution. But that is the purpose. So with the tripartite, I don't think that will be attained.
Sir, are the companies willing to pay for these vaccines, and to what extent? We did have Joey Concepcion on the show, and he did mention, that the AstraZeneca vaccines were in part donated by the private sector, pero hanggang doon na lang. I mean, they cannot keep donating na rin. To what extent do you believe that the private sector needs to play a role here?
Well, the additional ones are not willing to donate anything. The reason is it's not going to the owners of the companies. It's going to the workers, and these workers are supposed to be the responsibility of the government, as the government has repeatedly said that everybody will get their vaccines through the government, and there's a budget for it. So when the private sector buys or the LGUs buys, that is a savings for the government, and that won't be a little savings. It can probably be more. More importantly, on the rollouts, I don't think the rollout will be an easy task. But with the participation of the private sector, if they buy their own, you can expect rollouts to be faster and more efficient. For instance, private companies which operate mining have mining operations in the south. That's not easy for government to go into, but companies will have their own nurses, doctors under the supervision. They probably would be able to do it faster. And if there is a way that because there is a problem with the government in the importation, they cannot advance payment according to our rules, but the private sector can. And the private sector is not hampered with a lot of rules of COA. So very easily, if we are allowed,
Mhm.
uh, it's quite to assume that they will come faster.
Okay, sir, is your chamber or the businesses for which you are responsible for, are they in favor of a possible extension of ECQ if these cases continue to rise?
We have always stated from the very start that we have had the longest lockdown already in the world, not only in Asia, in the world. And where are we now? No? So obviously, lockdown is not the only answer. We cannot uh, we cannot keep on just betting on that is the answer. There are other things that our neighbors that can be done, and I think we are saying that if government can afford to give subsidy to everybody, uh, then maybe that's one way to be able to mitigate the situation. But the problem is, even in this one week lockdown and Holy Week, which is basically what 3 days, government is already allocating quite enough bill, 23
Mhm.
billion, I think. What more if we
Correct.
extend one of the week? The one who are saying that another extension of lockdown is just thinking about the COVID, the rising cost, but they're not thinking about how to balance it. You
Mhm.
know, what they are worried about our hospitals uh, being deluged by because of the high volume of patients. But even if before we had a mega quarantine centers in Jose Memorial. There is a World Trade Center. A lot of the LGUs, even barangays, they converted the rooms in the schools. There are no classes anyway. To a quarantine center, the DOH came up with volunteers for nurses and doctors coming from the province, and hospitals
Mhm.
converted many of the rooms, so they have no clients even now for non-COVID, to ICUs, and this will cost the government them a few millions, the government a few
Mhm.
millions, but the lockout is billions. The 1 week lockout we had before, that cost tens of billions, and this one, why I don't know why we're trying to avoid what, because there is a shortage of 200 frontliners, because there's a shortage
Mhm.
of what 200 rooms, because and this can be saved. Organization, for instance, in the one hospital thing,
Mhm.
can be improved. Communication, so that when people call, they know where to go. Until it's a good news that I think they are putting up another 700 uh, uh, uh,
Facilities.
facilities, no, and
Yes, sir.
that they have what they had before.
Mhm.
Just
So there are
because,
other ways apart from a lockdown to actually address this problem. Finally, sir, before we let you go, sir, just a quick comment on the unemployment rate. So we're higher than we were on January, at least for the month of February. Is this worrying for you, especially since we've already recovered? You can see on my terminal here, we had such a spike on the end of April, and then that was finally coming down. Is this going to be a trend that we need to be worried about?
well, we have been always worrying about it, and we have been very vocal about it. That is why we're basically saying we have relied too much on lockouts, and there are things that can be tried. Just because of this uh, lot of restrictions, a lot of people are not able to work. And even now, even before there is really a lockout, just the news of a 2 week recommendation of lockouts, a lot of companies who were supposed to be calling their employees in already changed their mind because that we and you know that a lot of industries are affected by this. Restaurant, the malls, the locators in the malls, hotels. They in the past they were looking at being able to recover in 1 year.
Mhm.
I don't think they can recover in 2 years
Okay.
with the way it's going.
So unfortunately, there's still going to be some pain ahead, a lot of bumps on the road. Thank you so much, sir, for those insights. That was the chairman of the PCCI, Sergio Ortiz Luis.
Thank you.
Checking in on some headlines today, the national government's total outstanding debt rose to a new record high in February. The total debt stock reached 10.4 trillion pesos as of last month. That's as borrowings were ramped up to finance the country's pandemic response. Over 78 billion pesos was added to the Philippines' debt portfolio, 29% of which was sourced externally, while 71% were domestic borrowings. Still, the country's debt to GDP ratio so far remains below the internationally accepted 60% threshold, giving us room to spend and borrow more to support the economy. For next month, the government increased its borrowing program for the domestic bond market to 170 billion pesos. The Treasury is set to borrow 100 billion pesos through weekly T-bill offerings and another 70 billion pesos via bi-monthly auctions of Treasury bonds. The 170 billion peso borrowing program for April is higher than the 160 billion target in March, but is still lower than the 190 billion peso planned borrowings in April of last year. Now, the auto industry is not expecting to recover from the impact of the pandemic anytime soon. In fact, Campi says they are most likely to bounce back to pre-pandemic levels as late as 2023. Campi president and Toyota's first vice president, Rommel Gutierrez, revealed that the lockdowns last year caused car sales to slump. That's on top of causing a 2-month-long plant production shutdown, followed by limited operations. Now, despite the decline of about 39.5% in sales last year, the group said they were still able to launch products online. Gutierrez added that the best case scenario for this year is about 30 to 35% sales growth. However, safeguard duties on imported cars could bring down the growth to 20 to 25% only. And those are the biggest news this trading day, March 30th, 2021. Catch Business World live tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Danny Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.